I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
The more you talk, the harder I want to hit you.
I'm happy because of being here today. Fuck you.
Come on, you want me to drive? No. You're supposed to be suicidal, remember? I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Let's get in the car.
Fucking shit. Fuck me in the fucking ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
And, well, it's great to see The Rock doing some drama films again. It's rare. We used to get some of that in the 2000s, but he's made a big return now. After numerous attempts at box office numbers. But, alright. Let's get on with this. Hey everyone, it's Dungeon Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. Yeah. You notice the Halloween figs are gone, because, to be fair, I finished recording the series. That was mostly just for the series, Halloween Horror Review series, and we finished filming that stuff around the time we'd uploaded this. We had filmed all those reviews in advance, so they're just premiering on those days. But, yeah. We finished out filming that series, but even though it's spooky season still around, we're still watching some horror films that we've already done. Just rewatching those for free. But I'm now here with a brand new movie review. This review is going to be for a film that came out at the beginning of October, and it's another film from The Rock, but it's not another big budget attempted box office blockbuster, and it's one from one of the directors of Uncut Gems, a film I've liked, one of A24's best films. And yeah, this is what pretty much his kind of return to acting in a way, and reunited with a Stark he did work with on a film called Jungle Cruise, reunited with Emily Blunt for a few scenes in the film. This is going to be for the film about this former UFC champion Mark Kerr, who's now a retired former champion, The Smashing Machine, which is directed by Benny Safdie. So, in this movie, The Rock plays this former MMA UFC champion Mark Kerr. It was once called The Smash Machine, this story based on the true events that surround Kerr's life and rise through the MMA world, but got derailed by his addiction, opioid addiction. And yeah, that's pretty much the plot of the film. It takes place between 1997 to 2000, and kind of Mark Kerr's more prime years. So that's my reaction to the film. I was intrigued to see this because it was kind of nice to see it looks like The Rock was going to be playing a more normal role again. Not trying to constantly go for billion-dollar hits like the past several years. There were some times, there are some stuff he's done I've liked box office numbers wise. Like, I enjoy Hobbs and Shaw. It's a fun little time waster. What else? I enjoyed like Fast Furious 6, 7. Not the rest of them. After that, it should have stopped with Furious 7, but those films I like. And League of Super Pets, the animated DC film from 2022, I do like that film. Definitely like that one. I like Central Intelligence. The film he did with Kevin Hart from 2016, I think that's an underrated comedy. I enjoyed that movie. But there were too many flops he had been putting out. Like, Black Adam was a flop. It made a big weekend, but it didn't do well after that. Rest of its box office run. There was Red 1, which I need to rewatch for Christmas this year. But I have a feeling I'm probably not gonna like it way less on rewatch. I think when I first watched it, I was just going through a bad day, so I didn't really want to criticize movies that day. just try to have a more open mind. I was just having a bit of a bad day that day I saw it. But we're going to rewatch it and we'll see what I think of it then. But on to this movie. When also, not only did it seem like he was going to do a role like this once again, but actually do a more normal role this time. And he even said he's done chasing box office, which I do hope he's done trying to chase box office numbers and back to playing normal roles again. And I'm glad he doesn't care if it didn't do well at the box office, because it's not doing well at the box office, but he said he's fine with that and he doesn't care about that. Like that, it was not meant to be a box office hit. And another thing, this was from one of the directors of Uncut Gems, so I had some hope for this one. So I saw the film Thursday, and how was it? Well, I wouldn't say it's one of the best films of the year, but it was good. I think it's one of the better Rock films in like a very long time. That one, The Rock actually did very great in this film. Definitely, it was definitely nice to see him play a role like this again. I thought his performance was there were some times I didn't like his character, but I thought his performance was actually great. And it wasn't bad. It was pretty good. It wasn't like one of the greatest things this year, because I did have some problems with it, but it was good. How was this made? Well, it was around December 2023. It was announced that this biographic sports drama based on the life and career of Mark Kerr was in development at A24, and Benny Safdie would be writing, directing, and The Rock would be starring in it. And on the red carpet for the 96 Oscars, The Rock confirmed that Emily Blunt, his co-star he worked with on Jungle Cruise, would star in the film as Kerr's wife Dawn Staples. Lindsay Gavin, Zoe Kosovic, Oleg Cassandra Yisk, Ryan Bader, and Bas Rutten joined the cast in May 2024. Then filming ran from May 21st to August 7, 2024, spanning locations like New Mexico, Tokyo, and Vancouver. Which, Vancouver part makes sense because I recognize some locations in the movie. And later that year, The Rock would later tweeted that Belgian musician Alison Furrow would compose the score, and the project was even shot in a 60mm film, and some scenes got filmed using some 70mm film as well as some VHS cameras, which that's one of the things I liked. I liked we had some little VHS quality in some scenes, like some interviews or the ending bits. Like it felt like there's times we were watching an actual interview in those scenes. It felt like we're actually watching actual footage of the real life Mark Kerr. Because the real life Mark Kerr actually does make appearance at the end. But after the film was officially shot and completed, Mashing Machine would have its world premiere at the main competition at the A2nd Venice International Film Festival on September 1st, 2025, and it won the Silver Lion. And then it got released by A24 on October 3rd, 2025. It's gotten decently positive reviews from critics, more mixed reviews from audiences. It only made $6 million opening weekend, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Alright, so let's get on with the good qualities in the story of the film. So, why the Smashing Machine was actually pretty good is because the Smashing Machine is one of those mini fighter biopics that has come out in quite a bit. Like, this came out 2 years ago. We had The Iron Claw, which I think I'm going to have to say I like that film a little more than this, because The Iron Claw, you actually do feel a little more emotion, and Zac Efron gives an actually very phenomenal tearjerker performance in that film, and it really captured the tragedy of that family very well. This film, like, we're now getting used to that, where the hero needs his fight in and out of the ring to keep his, like, family health and reputation all together. But unlike The Iron Claw, the Smashing Machine's not really a groundbreaking story. Even though A24 and Benny Safdie worked on it, although the Smashing Machine still does feel fresh, it doesn't try too hard to be some epic, and it flows naturally well. The direction and photography are definitely still organic in the film. The pace is definitely immersive, like Good Time and Uncut Gems. Mark Kerr's story is pretty well told, and it's pretty relatable. And the score of the movie is also pretty well done. Like, you have this, like, jazz during the MMA fights, and it's a very unexpected, like, little catch, and the twists and sudden percussions perfectly reflect, like, the art of MMA, and give it more grace than what a lot of people are used to seeing it on TV. And for a while, like, the story of Mark Kerr, like, I have never heard of Mark Kerr or never, because, well, I wasn't born around the time he was kind of a fighter. So this movie was kind of my introduction to his story. So when I saw the trailer for Smashing Machine, and before I even heard of Smashing Machine, I had no knowledge of Mark Kerr, and the unfamiliarity, though, actually does work for me. Like, the movie really offers a grounded look in the world of a man that's battling inner demons and addiction, and chasing success in a brutal sport. And, like, The Rock does give a performance, like, unlike a lot of stuff we usually are familiar with him, like, I think the scenes where he does well, either the scenes where he's, like, angry or argues with his wife, I think The Rock does pull off those scenes well. And I mean, you do have some light moments of humor from his character at some rare times, like when he gives his autograph to this kid at the hospital, and he tells him no fighting, and or like one bit when he does get out of rehab is like him and Blunt's character that I'll get to later. They go to this carnival for a little bit, and they're debating whether to get on this alien abduction ride there, and it's like no, I can't ride that. My stomach might be upset, or come on, like, so, and he pretty much asks the carnival guy, so, I have a weak stomach, but you think I should get on this ride? And the carnival's like, guy, if you have a weak stomach, no, you shouldn't get on the ride. Like, and, that got a bit of a laugh out of me. I'm not gonna lie about that. That was kind of funny. And, like, The Rock really disappears well into the part of Kerr. Like, he's very raw, he's very vulnerable. And it's not the usual personnel we're actually familiar with in his roles. What I also appreciate about the Smash Machine, it's got the willingness to show the highs and the lows of Kerr's life without scintillation in either of them. The story hits familiar beats, like seeing a lot of sports dramas. Like, this is a film that's not really about, like, sports per se. It's more kind of about a troubled man that's trying to make something more of himself and maintain a relationship with his girlfriend, but it's not, like, cliched, and there's some honesty to it, and while Blunt's character doesn't really contribute a lot to the story, and she doesn't do too bad in the role, though there's times I feel she didn't really contribute much to the plots, and I think when it comes to performances from Blunt, I like her in Edge of Tomorrow a little more, I like her better in Sicario, I liked her more in the Quiet Place films, I like her comedic performance in The Fall Guy, I liked her in Oppenheimer. I kind of feel just those were kind of better performances I've seen from her, but that's the thing, that's just that the character didn't really do a lot to the plot, and there's times, like, most of her and The Rock's chemistry in the film is really just kind of them arguing a lot, or kind of like Mark Kerr kind of being a little annoyed with her at times, and kind of coming off a bit too ungrateful in some scenes. Even though, to be fair, it does try to bring out a more nuanced side that we rarely get to see. Now, how do we start off? So, the movie does start off with this montage of the early career of Mark Kerr, where we transition to his first win, and he celebrates and explains, like, the ecstatic high of winning fights and roar the crowd, and like, during his first fight, he sees the opponent lying on the ground, and he's like, I want to make sure he's okay first, and so, I did like that. I did like he did want to make sure his opponent wasn't badly injured first. Just want to make sure it was all right before celebrating. So, he's not overly arrogant when you first meet him. I mean, he still does have some likable charm to him. And I mentioned, like, one bit, like, when he's at that hospital getting his eyes checked out. This grandmother with this kid is there, and this kid, like, shyly approaches him, but Mark Kerr's chill about it and even gives him this autograph, which was kind of adorable, which I will admit was definitely kind of adorable, that he actually is just fine that kid approached him and actually gave him this autograph, gave him this signed little autograph from him. And then you get to the year 1999, because this takes place from 1997 to 2000, where Mark lives with his girlfriend Dawn, and he has a bad relationship with her, where she makes him a smoothie, but she forgot this ingredient, so he just remakes it himself and just kind of wastes the one that she made him. And then when he gets to the couch, he sees their cat lying there, like, no, get off the couch. He's gonna wreck the couch. Like, it's okay, Larry. Like, no, this is an expensive couch. And so, like, the cat just goes on Blunt's lap, and he's just sitting there, but he still does thank her for at least trying to make the smoothie, though, So at the very least, he at least still does thank his girlfriend, though. It's like, there's times like he does come off as a little ungrateful in some scenes, but this is before those scenes, and he's not like 100% an unfaithful asshole. Like he's not like a cheating douchebag or anything like that. And like this is kind of, well, and he at least does apologize for that. That's pretty much how I start off the first half of the film. So the Smashing Machine really shows a side of The Rock we've never seen. From it's far from the usual action hero roles. I mean, he's had some drama roles. There was Gridiron Gang was in that film. I think there were some what other drama roles he done, but I think I'm familiar with Gridiron Gang. But here he delivers this raw. Tell me in the comments down below what other drama roles he's done, if I'm forgetting any. Tell me in the comments down below. He delivers this raw emotional performance that really captures it all well, and it balances the intensity of MMA and some human struggles, and it's not just another sports biopic. Right there, like it's very incredible to see how all these struggles Kerr faced. Now he's battling his inner demons, and The Rock played those scenes well. It explored heavy topics through the 2-hour runtime it has. The story here is pretty beautiful, and it's brilliant and stuff, and of course. Another thing I think I liked the friendship dynamic between Kerr and his other pal Coleman a little more than kind of the scenes with Kerr and Don. Ryan Bader in this film, Ryan Bader also did well in the role of his friend Mark Coleman, and it was definitely one of the best parts of the film because of how much of a great performance it was. The writing is pretty fantastic, and there's some good dramatic scenes that do feel real and intense to definitely watch in the film. Now, more on Don. So, like I said before, Blunt did pretty good with the performance. I mean, and to be fair, as much as I kind of wish they had better chemistry in the film, I felt her and The Rock in this film, when they were playing Mark and Don scenes together, they do well playing this couple that's kind of struggling with their marriage, and it's falling apart. I thought they do those bits well. The thing is, she doesn't really appear in the movie a whole lot. So she just doesn't really contribute a lot to the plot. And that's the thing. Another thing, I've said before, a lot of their scenes, they really just kind of argue throughout the film and kind of fight way too much. There's minor scenes of them having good chemistry with one another, but a lot of their scenes together, they really fight a lot. Benny Safdie is definitely a good director and has a great way with his directing style, and you still get the beautiful cinematography throughout the movie you've seen in his other films, and the moments are really stunning well. And narrative does follow this perfect formulaic approach, and it does end up losing some steam because of some predictable nature it has, but Safdie's writing direction really still balances out the ambition and purpose, and the performances are great. You actually see The Rock playing a real character. That's the thing in the film. Mark Kerr actually felt like a real character he was actually playing, which is a refreshing kind of change. So, Mark Coleman coaches Mark to prepare him for this fight. So then, of course, he stumbles in, and of course out of drug use because he has this opioid addiction throughout the film. He's meeting these Japanese officials, and they don't pay him up the pay he was promised, and this displeases him. And while he's still under drug influence, he then sits in a locker room, and then Don notices this and has this big argument with him. And then he rushes out to his fight and he drastically loses. But even though it gets ruled as a no contest, but he's devastated about losing the fight. The addiction angle really does come, and I definitely loved how the addiction angle was shot in the film. It doesn't really show the real life relapses Mark Kerr clearly had, and of course in that bit, and the fights do feel real, and especially whenever it's in and out of the cage, it really feels genuine, and The Rock's acting in the role does really make this something, and of course, you still get a bit of Safdie's signature anxiety-laced editing in the film, but it's more of a mature restraint. It's not over frequent it wasn't Uncut Gems. He still allows the sounds to sting, the chaos to linger, and Michael Bishop's great heavy cinematography, and of course the great score really deepen the sense of tension and decay. And when you see the real footage of Mark Kerr, I thought that was done really well when he actually had the real Mark Kerr make an appearance at the very end of the film to show where he was at now. Set during present day, our year 2025. And yeah, some people would go in, oh good, this is another sports movie. This is how it's going to end. No, it's actually not really a typical sports film. You still get some of the fights, obviously. You still get training. You still get montages, but It's not how you would expect it to go. Like, don't expect like another. Don't expect if you're gonna see something like a Rocky knockoff or another attempt at the Iron Claw. It's none of those. It is none of those films. It's not the way you expect it to end. It's more really about the life of Mark Kerr, the ups and downs of Mark Kerr, and sometimes on the outside things can be a little different than the inside. So I love the directing style, and I think A24 does a good job with the film production and how the movie was shot. Like, usually when it comes to A24 as a studio, I kind of like some of their more non-horror stuff. There are some horror stuff from them I like. The Lighthouse, The Witch, Hereditary, the only good Ari Aster film. Every other one of the films that guy does sucks. Especially Eddington earlier this year, which was also for A24. I hated that film. I mean, I didn't hate it as much as the one he did before that, but still, I still hated it. What else go? Oh yeah, Talk to Me. Talk to Me was one of the only few good horror stuff they've done. Those are the only 4 horror things I like from. When it comes to their non-horror stuff, I like that better. The non-horror stuff I like from them, I love Warfare. I love The Iron Claw. I like We Live in Time. I like Uncut Gems. I like Civil War. I decently like The Whale. Oh wait, I almost forgot about their horror stuff. The X and Pearl, I like those films. Maxine was alright, but also kind of disappointing at times. So yeah, I don't mind A24 as a studio. Some might not really be able to find much purpose in the film because it kind of gets straight to the point and it's more grounded kind of the source material it's adopting, but it's a big strength. And I like that Safdie doesn't really apply his directions too harshly. It allows the viewer to kind of make their own account of like when they watch the story of the film, when they watch the relationships with the characters, when they see the overall message of the film. I think Safdie's direction is kind of a large part of why the film works. And of course, like a film like this, you probably would think of like sweaty train montages or stylized fights or cheesy one-liners, but Safdie doesn't do that here. Benny Safdie knows this is not that kind of movie, so he doesn't do that. It sets out in a completely different way and creates this unique piece with the film. And it's all the better having that stuff at the helm. So, after Mark takes more opioid, he starts to spiral into drug abuse more. And him and Don are still arguing way too much. And then eventually he does have a massive overdose. So Coleman visits him. It tells him that he has to change for the better. And Mark agrees to finally get better. So he takes a break from fighting for a little while. And he goes to rehab. There, and of course, then Don picks him up. And then they go to that carnival. And I think this is a carnival in my area because I recognized a few rides. Definitely recognized a few rides in the film and the background of it. Like, I knew it was shot somewhere, the scene was shot somewhere familiar. There's no, like, monster truck style car rally there. They don't have that there. That was definitely never at that place. The real version of that place at all. Because they do visit at one point, and you do get kind of that, like, somewhat hilarious bit where Mark's kind of debating whether he should go on that alien abduction ride. Or you do get a montage of them at that carnival where either Mark is riding on the carousel while Don's pretty much enjoying the time on that alien abduction ride that Mark doesn't feel comfortable going on. And of course, then though when they get back, though, Don goes out with a friend for a little bit. And then of course, Mark then eventually argues with Don a little more. And like, this kind of thing, I kind of wish they'd start to really improve Mark and Don's relationship a little more as the film kind of progressed. But they just kind of go back to arguing eventually. Anytime they kind of start to warm up, they just really go back to arguing way too much. And then eventually she ends up leaving to camp with Bas Rutten. Then of course, Mark leaves to camp with Bas Rutten, and like Dawn leaves him for a little bit. And then Mark does well in their coaching of Bass. And of course, then he gets into shape, and oh yeah, at one point Bass almost has a heart attack, but Mark ends up actually saving his life. So there are some other good things about Mark. He actually does manage to save his coach from almost collapsing of a heart attack at that bit. Then, of course, more training does happen. He does win his first fight in the Pride Grand Prix 2000. And eventually, he reconciles with Don, and Don gives him another chance, and Bass is dismayed by this, and Mark ends up leaving camp. So the movie still does have some grittiness to the screen. It gives the uneducated on the sport some authenticity and guidance. The story's a little sterile and pedestrian, but it takes nothing away from the acting. Like, you still get some hand cams. There's more documentary style. There's some minor musical score, but it's not over heavy musical score to really set up stuff for when it tries to be emotional. Like, it does feel a little more raw and dynamic. Sometimes it does play a little too safe, but then again, it's not trying to really be a heavy score film. I'm fine with that. But when it comes to the script of the movie, it's so-so. You don't get too much of a really amazing score, more by the numbers kind of lines and dialogue. There are some stuff I kind of wish they did include in the film a little bit more, maybe have a little more scenes of him with Coleman, Mark with Coleman, their friendship, because I think I like their friendship a little more than the Mark and Don scenes, or some bits where he's with Bass. There's some scenes where he's still like Japan. And it's not because, there is some times when, even though it's based off a true story, it doesn't really work as a fleshed out narrative, because it does feel a little bit too short to be really fleshed out. It's kind of, the film is less about really telling a story and more like trying to get people to recognize who Mark Kerr was. But but it doesn't really fully land as too much of a film. Like, there are some filler sequences that really have nothing happening, and they would try to push the plot somewhere and try to benefit the plot somehow. And that's the thing. This might disappoint some people that were kind of expecting another typical sports film, when it's not really trying to be that. I can understand it's not really trying to be that. It does cover the ups and downs of some martial arts careers, his relationships, his addiction stuff. So now we get on with the finale, where Don's preparing this party and Mark comes in, but then Don seems a little more mad because apparently his manager called and asked him back. And apparently, Mark is thinking about going back again. Don's mad about this, and just when they reconcile, they argue again. And of course, then Mark goes overboard when he basically yells that their fights are enough to pay the house and stuff. And of course, then Mark pretty much tells her to leave. Kind of acts a little extreme in that bit when he pretty much orders her to leave, and this leaves Don understandably heartbroken, which, to be fair, I can definitely see why she'd be heartbroken hearing that, because they just got back together and was about to set up a party for him. That's the thing. That's when I mentioned there's times when Mark comes off as some scenes, whenever it's with him with Don, he comes off as an ungrateful asshole in a lot of bits. But then, of course, this makes Don almost attempt suicide. And then he pretty much gets her removed from their house by the cops. Mark then pretty much moves on to the next fight, but it's clear that the attempted suicide really did affect Mark, and his actions clearly affected him, and his actions that night clearly affected him, so he ends up losing the fight brutally, because he freezes, because he has flashbacks of Don and other moments of his life and career that he messed up. And so he loses the fight and he's out of the Grand Prix, but he lets Coleman pretty much go into the Grand Prix and he wins the Grand Prix while Mark's receiving stitches, and he's pretty much decided that he doesn't mind kind of losing the fight this way, because he knows it's kind of wrecked his life a little bit. It's wrecked his relationship with Dawn. And so he's in the shower and he smiles and laughs, and then it ends at the last scene you see is the real-life Mark cameoing in a scene set in the present day, where he's now older and smaller, and he's shopping at a grocery store, and then he says bye to the cashier, and he goes to his car, And then he looks at the audience and he's like, "Bye, guys." And I definitely like that's how the movie ended. We actually do see the real Mark Kerr actually look at the audience and wave bye to them. So that was a nice way to end the film. And then you see a text that reveals that Mark and Dawn got married 11 days after losing, and then he retired in 2009. And so eventually, at least off screen, they did reconcile for good. I kind of would like to see it on screen, though. I kind of wish we did see them actually reconcile on screen. Like, give them a little bit of a more happier scene than just like a few minor happy scenes between them. And while Mark Kerr was now unknown today, he became one of the biggest pioneers in the MMA world. And that's the end of the film. That's how Smash Machine ends. Mark Kerr lost the tournament. Sadly didn't get to make it to the finals to face his friend, but he let his friend win the tournaments. But Karen contrasts earlier, he accepts his loss grateful. Now he's pretty much now moved on from his past and now realized the mistakes he's made. And he did reconcile with Dawn, but then they did divorce for good. But at least they stayed on better terms for a little more longer. And then Kerr lives a Monday life and he's happier than he was earlier. And he gets a nice ending where he looks at the audience and says goodbye to them. And then gets in his truck. So overall, it was a nice way to end this actually pretty decently good film. It's no masterpiece by all means, but it was pretty good. Alright, so now do I have any bad qualities with the movie? Yeah, I would definitely have some bad qualities. Where I mentioned this, Emily Blunt's character doesn't really do a lot to the plot. There was just limited scenes of her character. So her screen time in the film just felt a little uneven, and she just didn't really contribute a lot. Like, the look of Mark Kerr in the film does seem a little bit odd. Like, they try to shape him a few other characters to their counterparts. It's not horrible, but it does feel a little bit excessive, and there are some filler sequences that really don't have a lot happening to them. They're trying to push the plot somewhere, benefit the plot somehow. But other than that, I think Smash Machine is a pretty good film. That's kind of worth streaming if people do want to see The Rock play a normal character again. And we're starting to get fatigue of him chasing box office numbers and playing himself. So I'd say it's more stream worthy. So in the end, I'd say a Smash Machine is worth checking out if you want to see a good directed biography film from Ben Safdie, and a pretty decent little biopic film about a UFC retired pioneer. Anyways, that's it for my view of a Smash Machine. If we're going to rank a Smash Machine, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you're looking for a new refreshing role from The Rock in this era and see him go back to playing more sports roles again, then I would definitely watch a Smash Machine for sure. If we're going to rank a Smash Machine, I'm going to give a Smash Machine a 7 out of 10. Alright, there we go guys. That officially wraps up my review for a Smash Machine. Now I want to know in the comments down below what you guys think about a Smash Machine, whether you guys didn't mind this movie, whether you guys liked this film a little more than I did, or whether you guys just simply did not like this film or really care much for it. And until then guys, that will be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to Don Corleone.